What's good, my people, man? Flash Speaks back for another video. We just chilling tonight, man. Got some Eagles content for you. Actually, Dan Sileo, who works for the Jacob Sports Network, had one of my favorite players of all time, football players, that's Eric Allen, on as a guest. And they had a conversation. It was really good, you know. And I wanted to just chime in on it, comment a lot because it leads us into a lot of things I want to talk about concerning NFL football now as opposed to then. And one of the things is, man, the Hall of Fame in the NFL. It's like, when it comes to these sports, I don't know which sport has it right. In my opinion, the NBA is way too just liberal and too easy to allow people in the Hall of Fame. There are guys in the Hall of Fame that I don't understand why they're there. A lot of times it's just because they're on a team that won championships. It's rare that it's deserved. Now, you have some teams, like I think the Celtics of the 80s, where Bird, hands down, Hall of Famer, first ballot. And then you look at Robert Parrish, and you think Robert Parrish does deserve to be in there. You're talking about a guy played almost 20 seasons, was unstoppable, in the post, was a great defensive player. And then the same thing for Kevin McHale. You get that. And you can see how all those guys were indispensable to the success of that team. And then you look at other guys, like a Tony Parker, for example. And I argue people all the time. People tell me Parker is a real Hall of Famer, or Ginobili. I don't know if Parker was letting yet, but Ginobili. Like, to me, Ginobili's not a Hall of Fame player. Was he a great player? Yes. Was he an integral part of what they were doing there in San Antonio? No doubt. Hall of Famer, though? No. For me, a Hall of Famer has to be the guy that, ideally he's the guy that you build the team around. He's a guy that's so good, he's the franchise. For me, especially in basketball where one or two players can kind of affect playoff implications and stuff like that. But I think they let too many people in, man. Some of them guys they let in, I don't see it. Whereas in the NFL, I think the NFL might be too strict, too crazy. Sometimes they got it right not letting certain people in. But, it's crazy that a guy like Eric Allen is not in the Hall of Fame. It's crazy. He absolutely should be, by any metric. If you're judging numbers comparative to other cornerbacks, whether you want to say Mike Haynes or Deion Sanders or Champ Bailey, definitely. Eric Allen, without a doubt, was a better cornerback than Champ Bailey. I'll argue anybody down with that. I don't know that Champ Bailey doesn't get in if it wasn't for, them winning that Super Bowl towards the end of his career with the Denver Broncos. I don't see it. Was he a good cornerback? Yeah. But I always thought Champ was a little overrated. Charles Woodson was more so the guy I liked, Yeah. And then Seth Joyner. Seth Joyner absolutely should be a Hall of Famer, man. You look at his numbers next to Derrick Brooks, and it's hard to tell the difference. And Eric Allen's going to talk about here why he feels that actually, at a certain point, that Seth Joyner is actually better than Derrick Brooks, And I'm going to let them talk and chime in.
To play with back there and Philly.
Eric, do you think Gang Green during that time when you had the 85 Bears, the Lawrence Taylor Giant teams, those 49er defensive teams, because of the lack of a championship, do you think that sometimes when you look at those guys, because I remember one year, and I was playing in the league at the time, if I'm not mistaken, that Gang Green defense had given up the least amount of points, least amount of rushing yards, least amount of passing yards. All pros across the line of scrimmage were just insane at every single level that Buddy had built. And in your opinion, do you think that kind of takes away or took away from the acknowledgement of what that defense really was back in those times, because it was a spectacular defense.
Before he answers that, I just want to mention here that the year that the Philadelphia Eagles defense, what we called gangrene at that time, had led in points, takeaways, and in yards. That team was actually coached by Bud Carson. Buddy Ryan, without a doubt, built it. But this was the year after Buddy got fired. Then we hired Bud Carson. Bud Carson, who was the architect behind the steel curtain defense of the 70s. Once he got his hands on it, he kind of took it to another level, actually. Though Buddy Ryan, is almost as big as his equal, though. Steel curtain, steel curtain.
Yeah, Dan, that's exactly true. Unfortunately, that year, and I think you're alluding to 1991, we finished across the board number one in every major defensive category. And I think our plus minus turnovers was pretty high. And come to mind, we were dealing with quarterback issues. Randall had got hurt, so we were kind of juggling quarterbacks. But defensively, we knew what type of team we had to be in order to, get our team to be in that running at the end of the year. I'm not even sure we made the playoffs. We won 10 games that year, but just the dominance, and it all started, of course, up front. And when you have a player the caliber of Reggie White, who, not just me, but I've heard Lawrence Taylor recently just say that, he was the best defensive player he's ever saw. And, I'm in the film room with him all the time. And it's just amazing what he was able to do and what teams were forced to have to do to kind of counteract, him and Jerome. And then you had Clyde on the other side, who was kind of coming into his own, was a tremendous pass rusher with great length. Then the second level, Byron is funny. We called him B&E. Byron Evans. He was from the University of Arizona. And it took him a while to kind of get all of the checks and everything, because at that time, Buddy Ryan had instituted what we call an AFC, which means automatic front and coverage. So we didn't call the defense until the offensive formation was set at the line of scrimmage. So we didn't have a earpiece in our ear. Not that I'm saying that's bad, but so it was up to every member of the defense to understand what was going on offensively, what formation they were in, what the situation which the situation was. So we'd have to all be on the same page. So imagine that.
Wow, did you hear that? What he just said? He said they would not call the defense until after they saw the offensive formation. That's crazy. And it wasn't the coaches doing it. The players had to know exactly what to do. Wow. That's crazy.
Second guy having to look at the formation, figure out what's going on, know the check, know the call, and we were basically, out there all kind of responsible for being on the same page at the same time. So Byron Evans in the middle.
Crazy.
Then the great Seth Joyner, man. And, people talk a lot about Hall of Fame and things like that. And there hasn't been the type of player at the linebacker spot other than probably Derek Brooks, who blitzed, rushed, covered, called defenses. The responsibility a lot of the times was on Seth. And just the bigger the stage, the bigger the moment, he definitely showed up. And then we had to play complementary football because they would max protect a lot of times. And so that means keeping in, the tight end and utilizing the running backs. So I thought it was my responsibility, if they're going to max protect, to have to cover the best guy, whether it's Chris Carter or Sterling Sharp, Jerry Rice, it doesn't matter. So I would have to cover that guy. So
I know a lot of you youngins don't understand some of them names, man. Those receivers were no joke. For some of you who only know Shannon Sharp, Google his brother Sterling. All right, because Shannon Sharp is, in my opinion, a top 3 tight end all time. Personally, I believe he's better than like Kelsey's and all of them. Personally, just from watching them. But the numbers will tell you what they are. You know, they pass more these days and all of that kind of stuff. But Shannon Sharp, his brother Sterling, 10 times better than him. Seriously. You know, you see the number. The closest thing I seen to Sterling in terms of numbers was maybe that little run where Antonio Brown was just putting up those ridiculous numbers. We almost had 2,000 yards or something like that. Sterling was like that. You know, that boy was a beast.
The quarterback would have to wait and we can get a sack. So it was great chemistry, great complementary football, and it's a shame we weren't able to kind of have that and then Randall at the same time playing at his high level.
How about this, Eric? When you talk about a guy like Seth Joyner, I've said this before to him and about him, is that he was probably the first Tampa 2 style cover linebacker that could do all the things like you said, because, you know, again, Tony Dungy and the Tampa 2 was all discovered there, and all Mike Tomlin and those guys were all in Tampa with Bonnie Kiffin. And Shazier, who was in Pittsburgh before he got injured, was one of those cover 2 type of guys. You guys really had versatile type defensive football players on that defense. Andre,
I want y'all to listen to the way you answered this question here, because Seals brings up Seth Joyner as being the first row Tampa 2 style linebacker. It's very interesting that he brings this up. But listen to how Eric Allen answers this question.
Waters, Wes Hopkins, all big stickers. I mean, I wonder, though, Eric, how many of those guys couldn't play in today's NFL with the rules on being not able to hit the guys today coming across the middle? And I tell people this all the time, Eric. These wide receivers have big mouths. I'm like, you think you're going across the middle? When you got guys like Eric Allen and Wes Hopkins and those guys like Andre Waters coming across the middle, that's not happening across the middle. I just wonder how many of those dudes could play today in the NFL.
I tell you, one story is early in games, we'd be playing the Atlanta Falcons, and of course, you know, I'm guarding Andre Rison, who I love. Dre is just an amazing dude.
By the way, coaches high school up in Detroit now.
Yeah,
you know, he's doing a good job up there. Yeah,
he's doing a very good job up there. So, you know, we're coming early in the game. We're like, Dre, you know, Andre Waters didn't have a good night last night, man. You know, things not going well. He's kind of moody. So, by all means, you can go on the inside if you want. You can run this slant. I'm going to give it to you. You can run that dig. I'm going to give it to you. So, it's up to you if you want to go in there and risk, you know, the rest of the season for yourself. You know? Him and Wes Hopkins, they didn't want any of that. They didn't want any of that noise. And you're right. Those two guys also have passed away way too soon. But there is no doubt that those guys could not play in the National Football League today with the type of hits, the type of game they played, and those were tremendous athletes.
Wes Hopkins will lay you out. Bruh, he's one of the hardest receivers I've ever seen. You know, he's one of those guys, man, that was some of the forerunners to like the Steve Atwaters and, you know, in the recent times, like a Cam Chancellor, just laid a boom, you know, Sean Taylor, those types of guys, man. Sickening.
Sets for our football team. I'm going to go back one and tell you this. Seth Joyner was not a cover 2 corner. No disrespect to any of those guys. Seth was, at this moment, he was basically a nickel linebacker. So now, with the personnel packages that most teams run, they run 11 personnel, which means 1 running back, 1 tight end. So that third linebacker, you know, you have your Mike, who's always in the game. You have your Will linebacker, who's usually lined up to the weak side. And then you usually have your Sam linebacker, who's on the strong side. Today's game, you really don't play a lot with 3 linebackers. It's just normally 2 guys. Seth gave us the opportunity to play with 3 linebackers because he would go out and cover the tight end man-to-man. He would go out and cover the running back man-to-man. He would drop in the zones in a 3-receiver set. He's on the 3rd receiver side. So, no disrespect to any of those guys in cover 2, Tampa 2, which is an incredible defense. And for a linebacker, you have to have tremendous skill set to be useful in that. But Seth was more than that. Seth was a cover guy, a man-to-man guy, a blitzer, a play caller. I mean, he was just an incredible, just all-around football player. And it doesn't matter what era, what year, you can drop him into any era, and Seth was going to be able to be a very effective football player. Mind you, I think he was like a 9th or 10th round draft, something crazy like that. So
7th.
just have so much respect for players who are very versatile and can be big time players in any system.
What was it like?
Now, that might be the thing that's actually hurting Seth Joyner is the fact that he was a late round draft pick, which should not. That should never be a thing that hurts. All that means is that those damn GMs were wrong. They didn't know what they were doing and didn't pick him. But just like Seth Joyner, but just like Eric Allen said that, and he sound better saying it. Like I've always said that he was better than Derrick Brooks. But like people who didn't really pay attention to those Eagles don't know. And because the Eagles, like that Eagles team never won a Super Bowl, I think that's why, he doesn't get the recognition he deserved. Now, he did actually end up winning a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. That was the last team he was with. He was there for that 98 championship, I believe, when that Denver won. He was also on that Green Bay team the year before who lost, but who got to the Super Bowl. And Seth Joyner, his numbers are right there with Derrick Brooks' numbers. And it's a shame he's not in the Pro Bowl. I mean, he's not in the Hall of Fame. It's an absolute shame, a travesty to me. You talking about a player that was like in the Pro Bowl pretty much every year. He made all pro teams. He was actually in the running for MVP one year. Just didn't get the respect he deserves, in my opinion.
Playing for Buddy Ryan, he came down to the University of Miami the first year he got the Eagle job in '86, and Jerome was still in college with me at Miami. And I'll never forget, your former owner, Norman Brayman, who owns a Cadillac dealership, who I still know, and I know he gets a lot of hell from Eagle fans for not spending the money and getting Jim Lachey.
Norman Brayman was a horrible owner, man, and that's the reason why the Philadelphia Eagles were in the, in the hole, in the basement for a long time. The best thing he did was sold that company to Jeffrey Lurie, who, with all his flaws, he's willing to spend money, and he really wants to have a great team that wins titles.
9 yards. I know the whole story. Keith Byers told me he set it up and everything. I got it. But, we knew he was going to Philly because, Buddy came down, sat with us. We did about 3 hours, and he did it for 2 years. He came down. So get off your ass. It was like, we're number one in the country in defense. What's he saying? I don't know what and you're like, but he was a really demanding, but he was a really innovative guy. On how he knew how to put players in positions and create roles for them. Just talk a little bit about him and what the influence he had on your game and the influence.
You're talking about Buddy Ryan a little bit.
He had on the league, you think?
Another coach who should garner some Hall of Fame opportunities because of how he helped change the game of football. All right, so you get to the '85 Bears and kind of understand how.
You tell me Buddy Ryan's not in the Hall of Fame? Oh my God, that's fucking ridiculous. Now that's ridiculous. And he's going to go over Buddy Ryan's resume. The people who talk about the purple people eaters of the 1970s. From the Pittsburgh, Minnesota Vikings. Buddy Ryan was the defensive coordinator of that team. People don't talk about that, man.
Dominant they were. And just put so much pressure on the quarterback to have to be effective with everyone on the line of scrimmage basically covered. So when I got to Philly, all I heard was, this Eagle defense is going to be a little different from the 46. And so as you're going through the process, there's just so much information from a defensive standpoint that his players had to memorize, had to be on top of. So that was the first thing. As a player in the system, you had to be responsible for as much as any player or any system that I'd ever been in and ever heard about. And again, I go back to the AFCs and the BTFs. BTF is blitz the formation. So again, Buddy would give a hand signal, and that meant blitz formation. So every player had to be on the same page and see the same thing. So that means the week of preparation, the film preparation you have to put in that required you to be successful. And Buddy was the architect of that. So he forced you to be a heads-up player, to be a cerebral player, not just a physical presence. So you had to be a combination of this physical guy who we wanted, because, he was a Marine guy and he wanted the physical nature of football to be front and center, but also the mental aspect of football. He encouraged and he wanted his players to be smart ball players and to be effective. Once we were all on the same page, I just kind of sit back and sometimes think about Buddy was so proud of all his players that he evaluated. And sometimes the evaluation process was more about your mental aptitude more than your physical presence. So he had respect all around the league. You knew that the coaches who were facing us knew that they were going to be in a dogfight defensively, and it was going to come down to, basically if they can outsmart our defense at times, and very rarely did that happen defensively. So just a lot of respect. And even today's game, whenever you see every offensive lineman covered, there's different names for it. I work for the Raiders now, and we have a package called the Rhino package. It's not the Rhino package. It's basically an Eagle defense. Your center is covered, your two guards are covered, and your ends are outside in like a 9 technique. You bring your strong safety down the box because your linebacker is over the tight end. It's the Eagle defense. It's Buddy's defense. Still today, 2024, we're running similar defenses to a guy who started and created that back with the Jets with Weed Eubanks, back in the 1960s. So Buddy Ryan's impact on this football game is still felt.
Come on, man. How is Buddy Ryan not in the Hall of Fame? This is disrespectful for the Eagles. Just what he did with the 85 Bears should have been enough to put him in the Hall of Fame. Not only was that a Super Bowl, but that's like one of the most famous teams of all time. And they had Walter Payton, but they're famous because of that defense. People just talk about the 85 Bears and you get it. They're like the standard bearers for like a dominant, smothering, sick defense. That should have put Buddy in the Hall of Fame immediately. And then the way Eric Howell is describing him, it's beautiful, man.
Again, why are they motioning me right now? Everything kind of slows down when you're in those moments, and you think back to those clips you saw, and I'm like, oh crap, they're motioning me to get me away from Gary so they can curl him up and he can find like a hole on our outside cornerback.
He was talking about here in a game where he had to play against the Washington Redskins and cover Gary Clark. Like, if y'all don't know who Gary Clark is, you look him up. He was a hell of a receiver. You're talking about the late 80s or early 90s. He was part of the 1987 Washington Redskins who had defeated the Denver Broncos. That was the game where the first black quarterback to ever win the Super Bowl, Doug Williams, did. And then he may have been on that 1991 team that won the Super Bowl. I think so, but I'm not certain. I know Art Monk was there. Then they had a guy named Ricky Sanders and Gary Clark.
Dan, I stopped mid of the play, run back, and break the ball up. And we end up, breaking it up. We end up winning the game. But if I would have been wrong,
he's gone. He's hitting his head on the goalpost.
But that just goes to show you, Buddy gave us so much confidence in what you're seeing and how you prepare and understand the game, that if you do see things like that, it's up to you to take that chance to be able to make that play. And those kind of things are really small details. And, after the game, people were like, Eric Allen, he makes a great play. They don't realize that was from 1988. And I think the play may have happened in 92 or something like that. But that was all brought on by the confidence that Buddy Ryan had in me and the rest of his players on how to prepare and study for football games. So hopefully this year I get to the Hall of Fame and I'm able to tell those stories about Buddy Ryan and how much he meant to me and my success, and of course how he affects even today's game of football.
Well, let me get there then, because I was going to save it for the end. Eric, do you believe you're a Hall of Famer?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And last year, I made it to the finals. And as a,
I like the way you just said without a doubt. There ain't no doubt. And I agree with him, man. I agree with him.
Pouring over some of the numbers and everything like this, there's not one player in the history of the league who has 50 plus interceptions. I have 54. 5 plus touchdowns defensively. I have 9. Pro Bowls, more than 4. I have 6. All pros, all Madden, and is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm the only one who has all those numbers and is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Can I stop you for a second? I had an argument, and I had a comment with Jason Cole. I went, you don't really think Rondé Barber is a better player than Eric Allen? And Jason Cole goes like this, no, I don't.
Hell no.
And so I'm like, so wait a minute.
Hell no. Rondé Barber, Eric Allen. Y'all better go ask Deion about Eric Allen. Go ask Rod Woodson about Eric Allen. For real. Go ask Charles Woodson, who he mentored when he was with the Raiders, about Eric Allen.
You got a guy here with 6 Pro Bowls. You got a guy here that played on one of the most electric defenses of all time. I mean, all those guys on Purple People Leaders, most of those guys are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and they didn't win a Super Bowl. I mean, those guys didn't win either, man, and that's one of the iconic, or the Fearsome Foursome.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys didn't win a Super Bowl either. I go, how's Allen not in? He goes, I think they're leaning more towards the wide receivers, because when I get that list of 15 guys breaking down, like I put your name, I get asked, give me your top 5 guys. Your name was on my top 5, who I had last year for about 10 of the 50 voters. And I went, I think he's there. And I didn't think the guy from Florida State who played at Green Bay, Leroy Butler, I know a little different position, but I went like this. That guy's not better than this guy.
Hold on, they put Leroy Butler in before Eric Allen. Leroy Butler, listen, I like Leroy Butler. I do. I liked him. But Eric Allen, come on, man. They tripping. And it seems like they are letting more safeties in the cornerbacks, because they just let Ty Law in, who should be in. But even Ty Law wasn't better than Eric Allen. Ty Law had more iconic moments, where he got to play against like Marvin Harrison's, and he made big plays. He intercepts Peyton Manning. He has more of those moments. And a lot of that comes down to the teams you're on. But just a straight cover corner, Ty Law, Eric Allen, I'll take Eric Allen. I like Ty Law.
What's the problem? I think sometimes it's about the presentations too, Eric,
Yes, yeah. I believe so too. And going back to our conversation earlier about cover 2, as a cornerback, not safety, not DB.
He about to get into some real stuff right now. It's going to ruffle some feathers.
I'm a cornerback.
You're not playing center field. You're not playing center field for nobody.
Right. That's their job. They do it well, whatever. I'm a cornerback. I played on the corner. I think I have like 215, 16 games. I started on the corner.
Wow.
More demanding, without a doubt, cornerback, more demanding. I played probably cover 2 in Philly, seriously. And I was in Philly 7, 8 years. I probably played cover 2 like 7 times. But it was not in cover 2.
No, you had to man up. Yeah.
And that was the one difference from the 46, from the Bears to the Eagles. Buddy said, hey, front 7 were similar. They probably have better linebackers, but our secondary can handle the man-on-man stuff, because I have 21 over there. He's going to be able to match up with Michael Irvin. He's going to be able to match up with Jerry Rice. He's going to be able to match up with Chris Carter. He's going to be able to match up, with all those receivers that gave us issues time and time again. Like I said, I played probably Art Monk. I played probably 7 or 8 Hall of Fame receivers. Seriously.
Well, he mentioned some names, man. He mentioned some names right there.
Oh, Andre Rison was a spectacular player.
He's a spectacular player.
Sterling Sharp was spectacular.
Spectacular player. Andre Reed.
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills. Out of all those players I've played, and I think Andre Reed was the only one I gave a touchdown. No. My first year, I played the receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. Gosh, dang.
Largent.
Steve
Largent.
Yeah, my first year, he double moved.
White boy. Nicest white boy receiver ever.
Double move, you know.
How embarrassing, a white guy double moved you.
No, Steve Largent was nice. That white guy, that white boy was nice. Steve Largent, yeah.
Seth, Andre Waters, Wes Hopkins, they were. I may have to bring lunch for like the next week.
Oh my God!
Just facing all those guys, all those tremendous players, 2 touchdowns for all those players. I think I ended up. We were counting last year. It was either 10 or 11 Hall of Famers that I played against. So I'm really confident that it's not a production thing, right? It can't be a production thing. The Super Bowl, I understand. The Super Bowl is incredibly important, but there's many cases of guys who haven't played the Super Bowl who are in. And then the big thing, and I keep saying, hey, you know what? If you can move to safety and further your career, and good friends with Rob Woodson and Charles Woodson, great, do it. Be a great benefit. But all those interception numbers that come at safety, those don't count when you come.
No, Eric Allen, true quarterback back in the day. Like, I played corner, high school, man. Like, safeties, like, listen, y'all just can't do what we do. Y'all getting those interceptions based off our hard work. Y'all sitting there watching us and then just coming and picking stuff off. I feel what he's saying, man. He like, if I'd have switched to safety, my interceptions would be up to 70. You know what I mean? That's real. He throw a little shade, but that's real, though. That's real. That's real.
Eric, then you must hate the modern day Eagle defense. 2 high safety, 10 yards. This is what I say. I see that, look, and I know it's a trend now in the league. Playing that 2 high safety, guys off the ball. You're expecting a quarterback somewhere in the sequence to make a mistake, have a 3 and out somewhere. I get it. You're trying to keep everything in front of you. But, man, some of these corners make $20 million a year playing center field. I mean, dude, you were a true life lockdown corner. Do you think it's harder today, though, because of all the rule changes? Because remember, man, up and running down the field kind of kept the game even. You guys were fighting for the football. You had to turn and look. Once the ball's up, you're both receivers. Nowadays, if you blow on the guy or if you touch the guy, you get PI. You think it's tougher to cover today than it is back in the day when you played?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. The protection I think first it started to change with the middle of the field being an area where there was no justice, right? So if usually, you're catching a seam route, you got to be a tough guy to catch a seam route, before the rule changes, because guys are trying to separate you from just not the ball. They're trying to take your shoulder pads off by the hit. So, and coordinators kind of understood that. They don't want to leave their guy out to dry. Quarterbacks understood that. Nowadays, that part of the field is open. So now as a corner, not only in man-to-man are you, have to be really sticky on any routes that are from numbers to the sideline. Now you have to really squeeze all the way into the middle of the football field. And knowing that your safety is not really going to be able to be the sheriff in that middle of the football field. So that's one thing. And then the second thing, obviously on the outside part of the football field, the back shoulder fade stuff. Just talking about skill set and technique. I'm not even talking about penalties, but I'm just talking about how guys are playing the game. The back shoulder fade, really difficult because of your corner. That was like prime coverage area when you were tucked into that guy's inside hip. You had to force that ball on top, and you can take away the deep balls by being on that top shoulder. one thing about the back shoulder fade, that was really brought into effect with Keyshawn Johnson, because Keyshawn, big physical receiver, but we would all, talk as cornerbacks like, dude can't, he's not a really burner, so I can just be on top and just take stuff away. So him and his quarterback kind of got together, during the practice week, like, dude, I'm not getting any fade balls. Hey, let's try and throw this back shoulder stuff. So that's kind of really started. And then recently,
look at that, man. Eric Allen's bringing out some knowledge, some science, man. He talking about the history of the game, where the back shoulder fade come from. And that's something that should be a credit to Keyshawn Johnson, man. Like, a lot of people don't really give Keyshawn the flowers he should have gotten, man. He had a decent career. I don't believe he's a Hall of Famer, but, he was a significant player. Talking about the back shoulder fade brought in really because of him. That's interesting, man. Something that a lot of people don't know.
You can't put your hands on the guy anymore after 5 yards, and they're able to, if they're in the lead position, extend their arm and hold you off. As your head is back towards the football, they're giving you a shoulder or elbow to kind of create space. Extremely difficult today to cover guys man to man for a significant amount of time. It makes it very hard for these guys. I think the one thing that they have in their advantage is every team usually has an outstanding edge rusher who's getting to the quarterback fast and speeding up the process. But even then, when you have these great quarterbacks who are just amazing after the play breaks down, of course, Patrick, we see him every year with the Raiders, just unbelievable what he's doing. Lamar is just like a souped-up Randall Cunningham. This guy is amazing. Josh does an amazing job. Joe Burrow. I just really appreciate the quarterback play, but these receivers, the play calls, the how the teams are being called makes it very difficult to be a consistent, high caliber cover corner.
All right. So those are the words of Eric Allen, man, the great Philadelphia Eagle, who should be up for the Hall of Fame again this year. Last year, he made it to be, finalist. So hopefully he gets that this year. It's ridiculous, the fact that it's taking this long. During his career, he was absolutely one of the best cover corners in the league. I remember even one year in John Madden, I believe it was Madden 95. He was the best corner on the game. He has had that type of career, and it's about time, man, gets his due. I don't know what the NFL is doing, and he said some very interesting things there, man, about the way they play the game now. And I thought, man, I just wanted to, have you guys hear this, man. If you're not familiar with Dan Sileo and his show, Jacob Sports Media, they have some good stuff over there. Go over there and subscribe. But I thought this was good, so I'm going to just let y'all go ahead, man. We'll wind this down. So, peace out.